This episode is sponsored by the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center, dedicated to supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs. It provides resources and services aimed at fostering business creation, growth, and retention. The center features the makerspace, where entrepreneurs and small businesses can have access to 3D printers, video production, and photography equipment, t-shirt printing, and more. Whether you're starting a new venture or looking to expand an existing one, the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center offers the tools and guidance to help you succeed. To learn more and get involved, visit innovationcenter.cc. Welcome to Explore Local Podcasts, a weekly podcast where we highlight the great things going on here in Iron County, presented by Visit Cedar City Bryan Head and Cedar City Economic Development. I'm your host, David Johnson, and this is produced by Dallas Smith Media. And today I have two great charismatic guests on the show that I am excited to get to know a little bit more. We have Alia Shakira and Abdul-Khaliq Murtadha, also known as AK.
Yes.
And they are actors with the Utah Shakespeare Festival. And I would have tried to say that fancy, but I don't know that I can go fancy as you guys.
That's it's fancy. It's fancy within itself. You know, Utah Shakespeare Festival, within itself.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely.
It's hard to be theatrical when you're around theatrical folks already, you know, so
there's enough going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in one room. Yeah, it's very true. Usually when there's more eccentric type people in a room, that's when I go a little more quiet, you know. Anyways, yeah, my wife's family's kind of quiet, so I always tend to stick out like a sore thumb a lot of times there too, but I'm sure you guys will know all about that.
Trust. Around my wife's family, I get looked at as the weird guy.
Yeah.
You married this guy? Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
Oh,
okay. All right. We'll invite him to the table to eat, maybe.
Well, that's a perfect segue, talking to the weird guy and the beautiful Alia. So,
yes, very much so. That's how we're viewed, too.
Is that how it is? Yes. That's the introduction. Those are their official bios.
Let's go see the weird guy and Alia Shakira.
Well, I guess you and I can be two peas in a pod.
Definitely.
So, well, let's kind of talk first about why you're here, what you're doing. You're with the Utah Shakespeare Festival. Wonderful to be part of it. And you guys are in a couple, I would say, very thought-provoking productions, right? And so, why don't we start by AK? Why don't you give the high level of the Mountaintop, and what that is and what it's about, and then Alia, maybe I'll have you give the high level of Silent Sky. Sure. Right? Those are the two productions. Are you in other productions right now? Or those are the main two? Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll kick it off with
just
you. Okay.
Those two.
Right.
First off, thank you for having us here, David.
So glad to have you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here. Wonderful to be a part of the Utah Shakespeare Festival, which is legendary, where I went to school, and all over the world, like you said. So the Mountaintop is about the last day of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's life, or the last evening. And he's just made the famous Mountaintop speech. He's there in Memphis to support the sanitation workers' strike, and comes back home and is trying to get somewhat settled, as we all do. You know, when we're out on the road, you can't necessarily get settled in the motel room that you're in, even if you've stayed there before. It's, you know.
Yeah, I hate traveling for work. I'm always restless. You know, I think I'm more restless without my children in the hotel room than when they are there and won't go to sleep.
Right.
I mean, so
it settles you.
Yeah.
You know, in some way, shape, or form, to have your family or loved ones there to just, okay, we can have a conversation.
I have a cat.
You have a cat?
I have a cat.
Lovely is
nice.
She has a beautiful cat. But yeah, so he's there and he's trying to get settled and he asks for a cup of coffee and lo and behold, the person who brings it to him is someone he didn't expect. So,
Gotcha.
I think that in itself, I don't want to spoil the story for you.
Yeah.
But it just sets us off on this trajectory of looking at King's life and the last year and what's been going on in the last few years, really, what has been going on. And it's a funny play. It is irreverent. It is thought-provoking. It is it's tear-jerking at times, and at the same time, it's a beautiful hour and hour and 30 minutes of two people looking at life during that time and looking at the humanity that all people share, and just what we face when we're in our last days.
Yeah. What I really love about this concept of the mountaintop, and we'll dive in a little deeper later. So we'll kind of talk high level now, and then we'll dive in a little deeper later. But what I love is it's from what I understand, the day before. Let me rephrase that. I was about to talk about because the next day was when he was assassinated, right?
Yeah.
But what I love about the concept of this play is it's a fictional story, but it's what might have been going through his head the day before he was assassinated, right?
Yeah.
Almost as if he knew he was being assassinated, what are some of the deep thoughts and conversations he may be having, regrets?
Right.
From what I understand, it shows a lot of the imperfections of Dr. King, but also the great things that he was trying to achieve. It's a very nostalgic, reflective approach to it, right? And from what I understand, you two are the sole players, right?
Yes.
Correct.
In the play. It's just you two interacting. It is so cool. I was trying with all my might to figure out my schedule to go see it before we had this interview today, but oh man, I'm eager to go watch.
Well, we look forward to any time you come through, and I think we know so much about King, so there's the expectation. When I say this before I even read the play, I came to the play with this idea of, okay, this is the Reverend Doctor.
Yeah.
One of the greatest Americans who's
what an
ever
intimidating role to play, right?
Oh, incredibly intimidating. I was very fortunate to have played him in two other roles. Or in two other plays by Robert Schenken, All the Way and The Great Society, which are about LBJ, one of America's best presidents, but or arguably, I'll say. But with that approach and looking at all of these wonderful things that he had done, all of these, the courage that he had to lead the country into where we are in we wouldn't be where we are in the 21st century without the Voting Rights Act, without the Civil Rights Act. And so with those in mind, there is this mountain, if you'll excuse the pun, no pun intended actually, if you look at all of the things that he's done in his life and all of the achievement. I mean, the guy, he completed college at 14. He was he was
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a spectacular student, and he was extraordinary in his study of trying to do the right thing in a passive way that could be impactful. So where no one's getting hurt, but we're still moving forward. However, he couldn't guarantee that the people who were marching with him wouldn't get hurt. And he was very conscious of the children and the children's lives that were volunteering for the work. He was very conscious of his leadership goals and what he was trying to do, and the shifting time, especially in this time of his life, the shifting attitudes about nonviolent protest. And so with that in mind, he's got a lot on his mind. He's got a lot, a lot percolating up there. And there's the Vietnam War, which, especially after Lyndon B. Johnson had, pushed and pulled and, fought with the Dixiecrats and especially after King and SCLC, SNCC, or the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and NAACP had fought so hard to establish these monumental achievements for equality. He's now saying, okay, this war in Vietnam is unfounded, and it's about greed, and it's about instilling fear, and why are we there? And so if he had a lot of pushback. He had a lot of pushback from his own people. He had a lot of pushback from the government. I mean, he had a lot of pushback from a lot of people all around the U.S.
Right.
And he also had a lot of support from around the world on that were from people that were pacifists and from people that were saying, hey, look, you're right. This war in Vietnam isn't necessarily about what we say it's about, or isn't necessarily about what we're hearing it's about. So,
right. What I always admired about Dr. King is, because you're talking about some of the politics of the day.
Yes.
And
so that was on his mind.
Yeah.
That was weighing heavily on him.
Yeah, he's got all these things.
Yeah.
But regardless of whether even his friends and family agreed or disagreed, or his adversaries agreed or disagreed, there was a foundational principle that he stood for.
Sure.
And I think it was those inalienable rights for all human beings, for Americans. And I think that basic platform is kind of what helped create some unity in changing some of those policies. Because regardless of maybe what your political opinions were on the Vietnam War, because that was very heated in the day, and it's no different than what we have today. I think there often can be unity in finding those common grounds.
Very
right?
much so. That idea of empathy.
Yeah.
And the idea of what's needed to create that empathy, the idea of radical love, fierce love, which is an agape love, not necessarily the romantic love, but the love of a neighbor to another, and that neighbor says, hey, look, well, what's happening right now is we need to be on the same page, and I respect you and you respect me. And that in itself is a loving relationship to cultivate.
Absolutely.
And so that sort of thing was what he was trying to influence politicians with, and that can be a tough road to hoe.
Yeah, it's tricky. Politics are tricky.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, let's step back now, because later I want to dive a little bit more into you guys, your preparations for your roles, and in a minute we'll dive into kind of maybe a little bit of your careers. But before we do that, let's Alia, if you want to give kind of a high level perspective on Silent Sky and what's that about?
Yes, of course. Silent Sky, written so beautifully by Laura Gunderson, tells the story of a group of women who worked at Harvard University, known as computers. And essentially what they did was study the sky. They studied the stars. They studied different constellations, and they measured the distance between Earth, us, and those stars. And the focal character is Henrietta Leavitt, who is best known for measuring pretty much the distance or the
luminosity of stars and everything, right?
But overall, the greatness of the universe, basically.
Without her, it wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Yeah, some of her findings.
Yes.
And this is nonfiction. This is a true story. Some of her findings changed the way astronomers knew and understand stars and measuring the distance of stars, right?
Correct. She set a lot of precedents. She organized the sky in a way that was understandable by a lot of the men she worked with. So she set a lot of standards for the way that astronomers now look at and measure the sky. And she did it along with several other notable women. Annie Jump Cannon is the character I portray, who is also a real character.
Can I just say, the man is the only one who's not real. Lauren Gunderson, bless you, but the guy is the only.
That's not true. Actually, the character of the sister, Marjorie, she is made up as well. She's a fictional character as well.
But
Thank you, sir.
She gets for your mansplaining again.
He's trying to get a pity card.
Done.
I'm not even real.
As I was saying,
my plane goes down.
So there were a lot of women that she worked alongside. Annie Jump Cannon, who I portray. Also, Williamina Fleming is another character that's true to life. And these women literally spent hours every day just studying these glass plates where pictures of different stars and constellations were. And they use their own formulas to decipher how close and how far away the stars were, how bright the stars are, how many times the stars pulse, depending on how close or far away they are, the strength of the stars, what stars are actually made of. So
that's so awesome.
It is incredible. It's incredible to just imagine that a person would be so dedicated to a cause. And by the way, these women were not being paid.
Yeah. And they weren't allowed to do some of the...
They should.
They weren't allowed... Correct me if I'm wrong, but I read something in reading a little bit more about Silent Sky that the women didn't have access to the same tools, the telescopes and things. So they were making all these studies without all the proper tools.
Absolutely. A lot of the technology that the men were using, the women were not allowed to use at that time. It was just not the standard.
Yeah.
And it was frowned upon for a woman to hold that type of responsibility or I'll say power.
Yeah. Imagine being an astronomer, but not being able to use a telescope.
Yeah.
But in it being right there in front of you.
It's like being a doctor without being able to use a stethoscope.
And yet, and still making some of the most profound discoveries known in the profession.
Yeah.
You know?
That's great.
That's the power of the work that they accomplish.
One key word that you use reminds me a lot of the movie Hidden Figures. You've seen Hidden Figures and kind of the premise of this story, which is a real story, and both are real stories. Yeah. But in Hidden Figures, these women, they were what they call human computers.
Absolutely.
And for our audience, if that sounds confusing, what's a human computer? Well, a computer back in the day was basically mathematicians, right? These women did mathematical problems and they computed the information.
One who computes.
And so if you ever watch Hidden Figures, you see the first IBM, which was an electronic computer. And so computers today we know as some machine, right? That's what we refer to them as. But truly, initially, computers were these mathematicians.
Absolutely. And often women.
Often women. And what's interesting too, when we talk about how she didn't have access to the tools of her day or the technologies of her day.
Correct.
I often wonder, and I'm not saying this as a justification for the women not having those tools, But sometimes when you don't have the tools, you get a lot more creative and you start thinking not out of the box, but around the box because you don't have access to that box.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so it makes me curious about had she had access. I mean, many people probably speculate, had she had access, what else could she have found? But I'm curious if she would have found had she not had to go about it in that certain way. And again, that's not to say a justification of her not having access to, but I love the ingenuity of people. And I love that this story is, or I love that this play is telling this story of this ingenuity. And my favorite stories are actually historical nonfictions. I'm just enthralled. Like I've never been a reader. I mean, I always did honors classes and stuff in school, but I just always snooze on reading all the summer readings, unless it was like a historical fiction.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, if I got a historical fiction, man, I would just be enthralled. And the same with plays, because I'm just wowed that this isn't, Marvel superhero that's made up. This is a real life superhero in my mind,
she's
making a difference, right?
Well, I absolutely agree with you that, when you come from or grow up in a situation of lack, that your will is strengthened in a lot of different ways. When you want to succeed, the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
And sure, I think that, not having access to those same tools that the men did obviously strengthened her.
Almost probably drove a little fire under her belly. I don't want to put too much words in her mouth.
For sure. Yeah. But then when you get those tools, you're able to go that much further.
Yeah.
Your muscles you're strong. You can run with the stallions now.
Yeah.
And she could have probably really, let loose as she did, after she had access. She continued her work. She continued to make discoveries and influence a lot of other women who are well known in the world of astronomy. Yeah. So she never stopped. The work did not stop at all.
That's awesome.
No. The determination of all of those women, all three women, Annie Cannon, Williamina, and Henrietta. I think when you look at their determination versus the access they were given. And their sense of, okay, we will continue to accomplish. We will continue to do the work that they can't do, actually. They can't, sure, they could do this if they spent as much time here as we do, but they don't have the patience. And actually what we're doing is we're gaining a skill set that they've overlooked.
Yeah.
They've taken for granted. So when you look at that determination and you look at it without the technology, it makes you see, okay, wait a minute. This is how new things are found.
Yeah.
This is how the new discoveries are happen. When you get someone who's like, no, wait a minute, I'm just as skilled as anyone here, but I don't have the access. I'm gonna do it by hook or crook. I'm gonna make my way to do it.
And I think another thing that Lauren Gunderson, wrote beautifully, or kind of pictured for us, set the stage for, was the
unintended.
Yeah, the passion that these women had for just quite simply what they were doing, for just really making the discoveries in themselves, aside from all the things that they couldn't do, aside from the men having, all the tools and them not being able to access those things. Aside from all of those things, it was the thing that they're just born with, the passion to learn about the skies and the universe. And that's the thing that first, before anyone else is involved, that's the thing that actually fueled them, is their love and their passion for the thing that they're called to do.
Yeah. Well, get your belly going, that
yes,
fire
absolutely.
Kind of thing. That's great.
Yeah, not having to do with any men at all.
Not
It's
at all.
just
Not at all.
Yeah, those pesky guys, I have daughters, so, I was telling you guys before the show, I better not say anything too incriminating on the show,
Yes.
but,
wise man.
I'm a very protective father, and,
Sure.
That's all right.
and I love to see the success of my daughters. Like, one of my favorite things is when in a run or a race, when my girls beat the boys, I'm like, I don't want to put down the boys. I'm not about
Sure,
that.
sure.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, you show them what you can do. You know what I mean? I just think
Absolutely.
it's just awesome. I get so pumped because I grew up with all boys. So all I ever knew were boys. So having these girls, I'm like, in this world of girls. But I'm like, when people are talking about what, the girls can and can't do, I'm like, you do whatever the heck you want. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
I love to see, I always tell my oldest, I tell all my girls, but I tell my oldest all the time when she's kind of like nervous about something, I'm like, you are a strong, independent woman. And it's kind of become like a joke, but it's this motivating joke.
Yeah.
And she told me one time, she's like, I think she was doing cross country one year. And she said during the whole race, she's like, I'm a strong, independent woman.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
And that mentality goes men or women, but I love it. So I love this story. And I love these very human stories. And,
Yes.
people can argue the politics all that they want. And we're not really going to dive into the politics or the opinions on that. But looking at the core of what's the moral to these stories and what do we learn from it? And how can we apply it to be better humans and a better society and uplift one another for these successes,
Discipline, I think, this is just piggybacking on what you're teaching your daughter. And I think a large part of the theme of both of these plays is this idea of disciplining ourselves with the passion as well.
Agreed.
Alongside the passion.
Yeah.
So the passion is there, but the discipline has to be there, and the idea of purpose. The discipline helps you to get to that purpose. The passion is there, sure, but the passion ebbs and flows. So if you don't have the discipline to continue, and we can speak to this as actors, if you don't have the discipline that keeps getting you through the tough times.
Right.
I'm sure you can speak to this as a father, as a creator yourself, and as somebody who works in where the different areas that you work.
I was just thinking of my run this morning, like, I don't feel like running right now, but I got up and I did it.
Yeah. You didn't negotiate with yourself. You said, okay, no, I'm going to do this.
Right.
So if you've already got people who are saying to you, no, if you've already got people who are saying to you, you can't, if you've already got that, then you've got to tell yourself, no, I can. Despite those times when it's tough to get up in the morning, despite those times when it's, maybe you as, not to give away all of the play, but, as Henrietta, there are times when she was looking at thousands upon thousands of stars and going, oh my gosh, okay, am I just wasting time here? What am I doing?
Yeah.
But the discipline and the self-discipline and the encouragement, the self-encouragement to keep moving forward.
It's almost a yin and a yang, right?
Yeah.
And yes, absolutely. I would agree with that. And I kind of look at it in a different way. I have to say that, for me, the through line, the uniting factor is that through all of the accomplishments that we have made as men and women with these big brains here on Earth, at the end of the day, I think what's most worthwhile or what's most valuable is understanding what life is really about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Sure.
The connection that we have to another person. How can we enhance someone else's life? How can the love that we show to ourselves and other people help to make, this experience a little bit better? So, for all of the things that we have done and all of the discipline that we have shown and all of the wonderful things that we are known for, at the end of the day, are we loved? Do we have family? What can we fall back on when it's just us, when our health fails us, when our mind fails us? What do we have at that moment?
Man, preach it.
Okay.
I'm gonna make one comment on that, and then I actually want to transition a little bit. But so I several years ago, I was thinking to myself of, I love to run. My family knows my favorite, and it'll get mentioned on this show more times than it should, but my favorite band is Weezer. And, I just, I do economic development, and I've had all these fun, great successes in my career. But maybe this was when I hit my 40s, but one day I just remember sitting there thinking, like, if somebody's at my funeral, what are my kids going to say? What are they going to say? You kind of have the midlife crisis reflections.
Yes.
And I thought the only thing I really cared about them saying, I didn't care about what my favorite band was, or that I loved running, or what jobs I had. Really, it came down to pretty much one word, what I care about people saying, which I'm not perfect at and I'm still working on, but I just want people to say that he was kind.
Yes.
Like he cared about others, right? And to me, that's, if I could leave this life, this is digressive discussion, but you spoke to my heart.
No.
But
Not at all
I
digressive.
I think that, and I think that's kind of the essence of a lot of what we learn in these historical nonfictions is humanity and how kindness and support and motivation goes such a long ways. Whatever the cause is that you're fighting for, whatever your passion is, whatever your discipline is, right?
Yeah.
And so, anyways, you just really you got me thinking deep. So I appreciate it.
Of course.
Well, okay, so let's take a step back. So, Utah Shakespeare Festival, right? Putting on these productions. So I want you both to tell me, when did you first, if you can think of, when did you first hear about the Utah Shakespeare Festival? And maybe if it wasn't the first, how did you learn about it? How did you come to know it? And what made you go, you know what? I'm going to audition out there in Utah, right?
Sure.
Well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Many, many years ago, as I say, back in the 1900s.
Yeah, I know, right? That's right.
When I was first starting out, the name came across my radar as an actress when I first began my discovery of William Shakespeare and his works and started to develop an affinity for William Shakespeare.
Was this high school, college age?
It was college, for sure college. And I said, oh, Utah. Well, what am I doing out in Utah? You can catch me out in Utah. I'll go to London. But
that's
Utah,
right.
What does Utah have for me?
Yeah.
And fast forward, after taking a considerable amount of time off, away from acting, it came across my radar once again. As I was, as an actor, we look for opportunities and auditions, and the audition, came up, on my screen, my database where I look for auditions. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a go this time. I'm going to see what this thing is about, because I don't have anything to lose. Sure, Utah. Why not Utah? Why not Utah?
Yeah.
So I applied, and now I'm here.
You got the gig.
I got the job.
That's so awesome. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you.
That's great.
I love it. I love it here. I do. I really do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I had been told when I was in undergrad as well, one of my professors, the late Howard Jensen, was an early company member at the Utah Shakespeare Festival.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so, he would come back and he would tell us what he had just done. And of course he would bring his experience to the classroom, and it fired us all up, about Shakespeare, about Chekhov, about a lot of world classic plays. But I never had scoped out a plan to come to Utah Shakes. Much like Alia said, it was if the wind blows me that way, or if God manifests then that I am there, then that's what happens. But sure enough, eventually, it came back around and I applied, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of this amazing company of actors and directors and administrative people that are passionate about what we do and passionate about humanity, passionate about telling humanity's story. So, I feel, and also feel very fortunate to be here in Cedar City. Cedar City is gorgeous. The trails around the area have been very rewarding.
Yeah.
The people have been beautiful and very giving. And,
And I think this is the right time. It was just the right time. I know for me, and I will say for you as well, because I don't think that these productions that we are involved in, they obviously wouldn't be the same without the two of us. What we bring specifically to each of these roles and each of these stories, I think is a very special thing. And I think that as an actor, at this time in my growth and development, it was imperative that I had a castmate such as AK. I had castmates such as Katie Cunningham and Kat Lee and Sarah Shipperbottom to round out our cast of Silent Sky. It was definitely in the stars.
I love it.
And I'm so grateful that Utah Shakespeare Festival happened at this time in my life.
Yeah.
And this is for both of you, this is your first time doing productions at Utah Shakespeare Festival.
Yes.
This is our first year here.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, let's take a step back then. And Alia, why don't we start with you? I want to hear a little bit about what first gave you that little spark that said, I want to be an actor, and not just an actor, but even in theater. Because I think a lot of people nowadays, I watch any TV show with my kids, and every Disney show has the main characters want to be an actor or a singer, right?
Wow.
But
Yes.
I feel like every show says that. But growing up, I remember I loved doing plays. So I want to hear about your little spark to be a true actor.
Well,
Or maybe it wasn't like that for you. I don't know.
I think I've always been a performer.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm the one in the family.
On and off the stage.
Yeah. Always, putting on shows, cracking jokes for everyone, whether they like it or not, And I grew up watching The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up watching The Music Man and Singing in the Rain. And all
these are the classics.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was influenced by all of those, great stories. And I wanted to do those things.
Yeah.
I'd listened to a lot of my mom's records. I was listening to Whitney Houston and Luther Vandross, and just for hours, just sitting with my headphones on, singing at the top of my lungs. And after a while, my mom was like, you know what, we got to get you out of here. We got to get you into some type of program or something because you need to express this.
That's great.
She did. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that she did. And I just discovered that, through those programs, a lot of summer programs, things like that, I just found a love for performing. I love to tell stories. I love to make up stories. I love to tell other people's stories. I love to use my imagination and come up with different characters and scenarios. And that might be a little bit crazy, but hey, it works for me.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
I'm just going to keep going with it. And so I did.
Do you remember your first play as a kid?
First play. I remember the first time I was on stage and I had a role. So I was graduating. And I do remember this. I'm not making this up. I was graduating from kindergarten into first grade.
Oh, wow.
And I know. And
we're going deep.
I'm telling you, right? We're digging in the crates.
Yeah.
So
back in those 1900s.
I remember. And there's a program for the graduation, and I had the opening speech. And I remember saying it, I memorized it, and I gave it my all. And the last line was, So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Oh,
and I
my
gave a little
gosh.
flair,
Oh, yeah.
and the audience erupted into applause and cheers. And I just stood there and I just waved and I
Yeah.
said, thank you. And I just left the stage. And that was the moment. That was it. Everybody ran to my mom. I was like, oh no, she's a star. You gotta do something with that. That was it. And
Keep that girl on stage.
Yeah. And in that moment, I just felt like this is what I'm supposed to do. Not the applause and all that. I mean, that was great. But
Sure.
just, connecting with everyone in the audience and just making them feel so welcome.
Yeah.
And here we are, and this is what we're doing, and presenting the class. It was amazing.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Okay, AK, how about you? Let's go into the 1900s again.
Back to the 1900s.
Let's go back to that.
I had to go a little further back for AK, brother AK.
No, I did. Alia said it. I think first the credit. I'm very grateful to God for my mother. Dr. Murtadha was highly instrumental in encouraging imagination, and boredom was a curse word in our house. So, still to this day, she spells it. My mother, she says B-O-R-E. She'll say, I'm so B-O-R-E-D at that.
She spells it out.
Yes.
My mom would always say,
B-O-R-I-N-G.
my mom would always say, only boring people get bored.
There it is.
I tell my kids
There it
Love
is.
And I tell my kids,
Yeah.
if you're bored, I'll give you something to do.
Exactly.
They find something to do.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Quick, fast.
Yeah. So
That's great.
we played a lot with our imaginations. We learned a lot with our imaginations. She's an educator herself, and so just the importance of the arts was stressed. So even though we didn't grow up with a lot of financial resources, we also had. We grew up in Washington D.C. So, and I say we in terms of both Alia and myself, but my family, and we had the Smithsonian there, which was free. We had children's museums. We had, so we would go to the Kennedy Center and see children's plays and things like that. And so seeing those type of things and seeing the many art shows and dance festivals and things like that. I also had an aunt who was in a group called Sweet Honey in the Rock, and seeing her perform on stage was incredibly inspiring. I also had a cousin. So there were family members who were doing things, and I had a cousin who I saw on a PBS special as an actor. I was 6 years old, and I looked at it, and it just stuck with me. And I said, I want to do that. I got to do that. That I want to do. And it was always there. So writing stories. I'm also the oldest child of 15, and so
15.
Yeah, my
Wow.
What do you call it? Joint families or what have you. So
Oh yeah.
my parents
Blended.
divorced, and then blended families. Thank you, Alia. But yeah, my parents divorced and then remarried, and so I'm the oldest of all of them. So a lot of times, as the oldest brother who is entertaining and babysitting, and all right, so this is what we're gonna do. All right, so the director comes out, the storyteller comes out, and the performer. All right, make us laugh, Abdul-Khaliq. What's the new game you have? Make up a game then. Okay, my little 4-year-old, 5-year-old sibling. All right, no problem. But it lent itself and leaned into the performative space. Then every opportunity that I got a chance to do something, I would beg my parents to. My father was a bit against it. He was a bit stringent when it came to that sort of thing, because he felt like it was frivolous and felt like he had seen a lot of stories where young men went off the wayward
lost
path,
themselves.
lost
Yeah.
themselves,
Mhm.
or
And
just
you do
found
see that
other
a lot in
directions.
child actors
Yes.
and things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so he was afraid of that. He would probably say, "I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid at all. I just knew what I wanted you to do."
Yeah.
So so eventually, much like Alia, in the second grade, I was in the Imp That Saved Christmas.
That's great.
I remember being in the lineup,
Uh-huh.
and they were looking for the imp, and so they would have the kids step forward, and they had to jerk themselves away from Santa Claus.
Uh-huh.
And so, I'm looking at these kids, and this one kid, he's jerking himself away from Santa Claus, but he wasn't doing it. you
Yeah.
know? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, come on, jerk. And the superintendent of schools, who was friends with the second grade teacher and the principal,
Uh-huh.
said, oh, that kid right there. Give him a try.
Yeah.
And so my name was called, and I thought I'd done something. I was like, man, I should have just been still.
Yeah.
And so, so they called me up and they said, yes, that's perfect. And because, my father was he fought against it. He was like, nah, I don't think. The principal came to this, the second grade teacher came, and they would say, no, he's got to do it. He's the only one who could do it. And so I said, oh gosh, yeah, let him go.
I'm the chosen imp.
Yes. I'm the chosen. You want him to be the imp? Oh. So when I stepped out onto the stage, and all the, you know how it is with parents in the second grade Christmas parade.
Yeah.
It's their children come on, and it's like paparazzi.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
So it was, once the lights hit me, I was stuck.
Yeah.
This is great. I love this.
Attention.
My adrenaline, my heart's hammering, and all I'm doing is standing here, and it's great. Yeah. So, but the training itself then came through high school, and a great English teacher by the name of Linda Staub, who was very instrumental in saying, all right, look, here's Shakespeare, here's Lorraine Hansberry, here's James Baldwin, and I was overjoyed. And in addition to my parents who were giving us those things as well, to study and to read. And we didn't have, screens weren't as ubiquitous as they are nowadays. So, it was here. No, you BORED, get a book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's go to the library. Okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
So I was a voracious reader as a child, and that was a big part of it too. Just allowing my imagination to continue to grow, and having parents that supported it.
What I like that you both mentioned were kind of a couple things: the support that you had, parents, teachers, but also the opportunities.
Yes.
So what's really awesome here in Cedar City in Iron County, we're known as Festival City. And that kind of, part of that fed into trying to drive the economy, attract people to the area. Utah Shakespeare Festival has always played a huge role in that. I remember I grew up in the military. I had a high school teacher, and I've probably mentioned this before in some of my other interviews, but I had a high school teacher who would bring kids up to the Utah Shakespeare Festival, and those opportunities make all the difference for kids.
So
and
true.
Here in Cedar City, we have several different opportunities, children's theater and other opportunities for kids to jump in school, and I think it's more opportunities exist nowadays than probably when we were kids, and even others even before them. I remember the first opportunity I ever had for a play was, I think, my 8th grade year.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool, the opportunities that we have from grade school all the way to professional opportunities for acting here in the area. So what I want to ask is, Tell me about some of the behind the scenes stuff, the fun stuff,
Sure.
like
Fun?
yeah, the
There's
fun
no
stuff
fun in this.
yeah, I know, right? The fun stuff that other people don't see. Well, I know sometimes when you're run behind stage, when your part's done, sometimes you're ripping off a costume and throwing on another, or you're cracking it up with people in the back, or there's goofy little things that happen that maybe people don't know about.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the behind the scenes stuff if you want to throw in a funny story. But also tell me some of the behind the scenes of Utah Shakespeare Festival, because a lot of people only get to see front of stage, and back of stage it's a whole different story sometimes.
Utah Shakespeare Festival is a very, very well-oiled machine.
Yes.
There are so many talented people who work very hard to make this festival happen every year. And it isn't, they have year-round staff. Mm-hmm. So it isn't as if, in May, just folks come here and say, hey, let's do this thing and we'll do this. Yeah. No, there's planning going on 365 days a year. And yes, the resources here, just, for actors alone, there's so many. One of the things that I joke with AK about is, all of the activities that we have here in Cedar City, and they're sponsored by the festival. Yeah. Opportunities to grow as performers, opportunities to connect with the community here in Cedar City and abroad. And of course, with the acting community, amongst ourselves. So there's just so much that's afforded to us. And it's amazing.
It's amazing. And it's a tight knit community. Mm-hmm. Fred Adams.
Yes.
And the history of SUU and the USF together have created this wonderful community, and brought us through, some difficult times.
Shout out to Fred Adams and his vision.
Yes, rest in peace.
For sure.
And then it's been picked up wonderfully by Michael Barr and John D'Antonio,
100%.
And their administrative staff and creative staff, and they create an atmosphere where collaborative work can be fun, and where you get all the resources you need to do the play, to play. I mean,
to be successful.
Yeah. Now, what we were talking about earlier about this idea of being kids and being imaginative. Remember when you used to be in your room, right? And you had, that was the stage. That was your theater, right? You knew where everything was. And when you had your cousins or your buddies or your friends, whatever, your best friends come over and they'd be like, all right, so today we're going to do this and we're doing this, that, and the other. Well, they make it that way in this collaborative, and that's how we do. I mean, those are the types of environments that we thrive in.
Absolutely.
Especially when all those things are taken care of, so that you can just come in and do the work.
Do your job.
Come in and play the part, and it really is play. So we're using all of our physical abilities, all of our vocal abilities, all of our imaginative abilities, all of our cognitive abilities to pull together these amazing stories in collaboration with other people who are brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm gesturing to Alia here.
Thank you so much.
For those just listening.
Yeah, for those just listening. But
there's an aura kind of going around her as he gestured to her.
Yes, very much so. But it's and that is the thing. They bring all of these artists together, and Fred has set a precedent of doing that, and pushed to do that, and told this community as he was starting it up, hey, this can be an oasis. This can be a mecca of talent. This can be a place where people come to see some of the great things, great shows, great ideas, great theatrical feats carried out. And so that tradition has been upheld in a wonderful way by Michael Barr and John D'Antonio. And so we're happy to be a part of that.
One example of us kind of being pushed in a way I'll share is that for our first rehearsal for the Mountaintop.
That's trust. That was trust, right? Go ahead.
There's a lot of things. Is what it was.
Something good coming on.
Yeah. So in a process, usually your first rehearsal is called a table read. All of the players, director, important folks
Are you
around
telling
the
on
table.
camera?
Players.
Yeah, we read through the script just to get a feel for how it sounds and how we are playing with one another.
Yeah, the
it's
chemistry.
a great opportunity, for actors to get to know, who you're playing with. So first day, first rehearsal for the Mountaintop, we get into rehearsal and our brilliant, I'll say brilliant again,
definitely
director,
trusting director,
Cameron Knight,
Cameron Knight
had the foresight to instruct us to kind of ditch the table read. He says, "You know what? No, we're not going to read it. You guys just get up there and do the play. Just do it. Go ahead and do it.
Just get up there and just jump in.
Jump in. Just do the whole play, you guys, and we'll just watch you." And we're like, okay.
It's like we don't benchmark at the beginning of a track season or something,
Zero
right?
direction. It's just us and our instincts and just kind of feeling the whole thing out between the two of us. And it was the scariest, most wonderful rehearsal I have ever experienced.
Well, now why? Why was it so scary?
It was scary because I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. It's just me, up until that point, it had been me and my imagination with this character and this other character, Martin Luther King. And I don't know what this guy is going to bring to the table.
Yeah.
I have an idea what I'm going to do, but a lot of acting is reacting to what you're being given, right?
Absolutely.
And
so there's no rehearsal with this.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was going on in the moment. I don't know what he's going to bring. So we're up there and I have no idea. There's some really tense moments in the story.
Sure.
And I don't know what level of intensity
He's gonna bring
AK is going to be on, Are we doing this thing full out? Are we at 10? Are we at 100? What are we doing here?
Well, that makes your reaction all the more natural, right?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was so beautiful. It was just so lovely to play in such a free environment in such a way that was unencumbered by someone else's, idea of what we should be doing. We were given the freedom and the space to literally create these people as we saw them in our minds.
Did they record it?
So liberating.
That would have been so fun.
No, thank God they didn't.
What were those natural reactions?
You
probably
Let me tell you.
like, we're glad they didn't.
Look, we were happy to just get through that day because I mean look, there's an ocean. Okay, we're. Yeah. No, you all know how to swim.
Yeah.
Jump.
Just jump in there.
Just jump. Go ahead.
There.
But wait a minute. We've never jumped off this dock. We don't know. We don't have a bump. The rocks. No, you'll be fine. Go ahead. Jump.
It's
Jump.
deep enough.
I trust you.
Right.
Yeah. But we don't know. So it was a beautiful experience, as Alia said, and it was thrilling. And it's a great example of the talent coming into the room, coming together, coming into a collaborative space and trusting each other. And that's what Alia and I immediately had to do because Cameron trusted us. And so he was like, "Oh no, let's, you all know this play. Let's go."
Yeah.
What? Wait a second. Let's, I think all that's been said needs to be said. Let's just tackle it. So the idea of, again, the children in the room, hey, you know what a dragon is? You know what a horse looks like? Okay, all right. You have a horse, you have a dragon, I have a bunny rabbit, and we're in the story together. We don't know how it's going to work, but here we are and go. And what's this? This is this.
Yeah. The last 2 decades of my life, I've been hearing my children do exactly that almost every day.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, how do they come up with this stuff? I don't know. It's awesome.
Plus, and dragons and bunnies.
Plus, I got to say that, Katori Hall, another brilliant playwright that we're working with.
Thank you, Katori.
She wrote a masterpiece of a play. Likewise with Lauren Gunderson. I mean, the idea of these playwrights, tried and tested. We have their words. We have the story that's been molded and shaped. And okay, here we go. Now we just bring our talents to it and trust that, God willing, everything will come out.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that is really fun to hear. I appreciate hearing that story because a lot of times I think people assume, like you were saying before, you're kind of putting on a show both personally and professionally all the time. You're kind of out there. And so I think a lot of times there's an assumption that, they're not nervous. They just get on. They know what they're doing.
Sure.
But there are, because you want to know your characters well. You want to make sure you're portraying it in the right way, right? Like, I mean,
and you're not perfect. You have to come in with the idea of, look, I'm a flawed human being, right?
Portraying another flawed
human being.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm coming in, and all I can do is just try my best,
right?
And I can be disciplined about this from day to day, and then eventually we'll get completely off book. Eventually we'll get to a place where everybody is a part of a well-oiled machine. But that trust, I think, is established first and foremost by the director and by the administrators who set up this space.
Mm-hmm.
So if Alia and I would have come in and we wouldn't have had anybody to greet us, or we wouldn't have had anybody to say, "Oh, we're so happy you're here," or any of that, or if we'd have
had coffee machine.
You need your Keurig or something.
Coffee machine, water, all the luxuries of it, But to be able to just bring all of your imagination and creative abilities to a space where it's welcome.
Yeah.
That's a gorgeous luxury to have, and it's a beautiful thing to be a part of in Cedar City and the Utah Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah. So both of you have done theater, obviously, but you've also been in film and television, right? To some degree.
AK's that guy.
You've done television, but
It's that guy.
I read you're in The Color Purple.
Just
right?
Right?
a little, just
Only
a smidge.
just a smidge?
Just an
What's a
Academy
smidge?
Award.
Right.
What?
My elbow.
Nominated.
Just your elbow was in the shot. Was that it? Yeah.
Just a few scenes.
Yeah, but did you jerk your elbow away
know,
like
right?
the imp?
You know what? The
Did you
director
play your
actually
part?
pulled me out and said, no, she's the one with the elbow. Let's get her in here. No, they called me. They did. They said, we need your elbow.
So it still happens past second grade, you see. As you see.
Yeah, that's right.
The elbow, and that's the one.
Yeah.
No, I just little, bit parts and some features for a few shows I've been a part of. I'm really starting to spread my wings in television and film.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy to be there and I'm happy to learn. And that's a part of my career and discipline that I'm growing. I'll say that.
That's awesome. Well, and I don't know any, there are, I think any actor that could find themselves in a successful television and film career, why not? Because the lucrative nature of it to some degree. There's a lot of downsides to it as well. But there's also something, most people see television, right? That's where they see most actors.
Right.
There are theaters all over the country and people go to plays. A lot of people's exposure to plays are their kid or their siblings' school play that they went to. And a lot of times it doesn't go beyond that. But there's something so special about theater. Speak to that. Tell me, and there's fun, great things I think too about film and television, but tell me, what are those pros and cons, those things you love about theater that just that just television acting just doesn't ring the same way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll say the intimacy. I think that's something that folks have shied away from nowadays with all of our devices that make our lives so much easier. We've shied away from that interpersonal connection that can be formed when you are in the presence of another person.
Yeah, well said.
You know, eye contact.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of feeling what another person is going through.
Yeah.
You know, where they are in their lives. You know, it's something that can't be replicated. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. We'll never have the same show twice.
Right.
You know, our audiences will never see the same show twice, and we'll never have the same audience twice.
You're right.
You know, and that's a gift. You know,
I love being so upfront where you can just see the expressions in the eyes and the faces of the actors, and sometimes vice versa for the actors. You see that in your audience members,
whether we want to or not.
I know. It's like, no, but you can see the emotion in your audience's eyes, or you feed off of their energy.
So
right?
true.
So and what about you, AK? What
I would have to piggyback off of what Alia just said. I mean, the interpersonal connection with the audience is key. The audience for theater, you know, they're part of the trifecta. They're part of there being a stage, there's a performer, and then there's an audience, and that's really what makes theater theater. You know, we talked about being the kid in the room. You know, the kids are the audience for themselves, right? So that's the next step. That's the growth. To where, okay, when you're doing it, you're not just doing it for yourself. You're actually doing it to show other perspectives of humanity to other people, you know, and other stories. And, you know, I mean, it's the oldest profession in the world. I tell my students that they'll say,
teach too.
Yes.
Oh, this is great to hear.
Yeah. But the students will say, well, I thought there was another older. I said, well, that person had to tell the story about themselves. You understand?
Yes.
You know? So storytelling is one of the oldest professions.
Yes,
but it's the audience. The audience always keeps you coming back. The audience is, you know, even if they're reserved for the whole show, the ovation or the lack of ovation, whatever it is, but that response really just it solidifies the value of the story, whether or not they applaud it or not. Actually, what is it like to not be applauded? I don't know. Let me stop.
That's where you pose in front of the
intimate.
camera.
I'll tell you that. It gets real intimate.
You know, it does. But it is a beautiful thing to share that interpersonal. Yes. Oh, hey, here's this gift of this story that we've prepared for you to learn about. Maybe a little bit more about something that you already know, maybe a little bit something new, but it is the person who says, "Oh my gosh, thank you for that."
Yeah,
you know, it's that's wonderful. That's so rewarding.
Yeah,
television film, you know, it's a different acrobatic feat. I think it was Pacino who said this, but that when you're acting on the stage, it's like a high wire act.
Yes.
And the high wire act for stage is, you know, 100, 200 feet up in the air. For television and film, it's about maybe 5-6 feet off the ground. Why? Because if you mess up, you can cut. If you flub a line or what have you, or if a phone goes off, you know, the director can yell cut and say, "Hey, who has the phone on?"
Yeah.
But if you're in a live theater, then we continue. We play with that sound.
Yes, we do.
There was a time, I forgot
Roll
to tell
with
you
it.
this, remember the other night, this was right around the end. Well, I don't want to give away the show. But there was the phone that goes off.
Yes.
And I was going to be like, is that God? What? Is God calling back? You know, but I was so, I thought, that would have been great to say. But, you know, but it's wild because the audience can inspire you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The audience and their cheers, their laughter, their sniffles, their breath in, their audible response to whatever they see is fuel. It is
music for the dance that we perform.
Well, and when you were talking about kind of some of the distinctions of film and cutting and all that, the one thing I love about theater is for the actor is you're getting to tell and perform the story from start to finish.
Yes.
Right? No interruption unless a sandbag fell on someone, you know.
Yeah.
But even then the show must
God
go
forbid.
on.
Absolutely.
Right? That was kind of a morbid analogy.
No, but hey.
Things happen.
Yeah.
Things happen on stage. You know, sometimes
Never
props.
at the Utah Shakespeare Festival has there been a sandbag
Never
falling.
experienced.
No sandbags falling unless it's a murder mystery play.
Yes.
You know.
Correct.
I believe it was stated earlier that Utah Shakespeare Festival is a very well-oiled machine.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
we've
Very
made
much
that
so.
clear.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of wrap up with a couple things. Advice you would give young actors or struggling actors that are like, this is my passion, I've been disciplined, or I don't know, is it practical? Like when you're talking about your dad, like my hesitation in pursuing anything with arts, drawing, music, and acting, which I loved all those things as a kid, was in my practical mind, they weren't practical. And I wasn't going to be able to provide for my family. And there's some truth to that, but there's also, I've learned as I've gotten older, there's not a lot of truth to that. So what advice would you give to young aspiring actors?
Study what it is you are planning to go into.
But that's what you have to do for math.
Exactly, right. Well, I mean,
I'm teasing.
It's a part of learning.
You need to
It's
know
not
and
something that
understand
you just, you know, anything worth doing.
Yes.
Anything worth doing is worth figuring out, all right, this is how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
This is how the professionals who've done it for centuries before me have done. Yes, maybe I have a beautiful voice, but okay, now let me figure out how to use it, how to work it, how to make it so that I can say this, you know, epic poem, how I can sing this aria, how I can, you know, use my body to perform this amazing dance. So, and whether or not it's technical or writing or whatever it is, the idea is to study it so that you can improve it within yourself and then hopefully add something to it later on down the road once you've learned the parameters of it, you know? So for anyone who's interested in doing anything in the entertainment industry or anything in life, period, you know, if you want to be a botanist, if you want to be a doctor, whatever, if you want to be a writer, study it, read about it, play with it, you know, ask other people who have done it, and then understand the rules about it and learn to respect those rules. And then honestly, so many things are going to open up for you. And you will find the more you study, the more avenues will open up and you'll say, oh, wait a minute, I want to be a storyteller, but I'm afraid of this. Okay, well, maybe it's I don't know, podcasting. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's some other aspect. Maybe I'm maybe I'm a journalist. Maybe I'm you know, and maybe I'm a producer. Maybe I'm an executive producer, you know, maybe I'm the one who finds out how to get the money so that these things can continue to go on. I mean, there's so many, the entertainment industry is so packed with different people who different ants who help the colony to run.
Have different talents that make it go forward. Yeah. What would you add to that?
I would say to any and all aspiring performers, I would advise them to trust themselves, trust your gut. There is a famous saying amongst theater teachers, and what they tell their students is that if there's anything else you can do, then do that. Don't do this, because it's going to require everything in your being, all of you, which is true for the most part. However, there's a caveat. There's another saying in improv, it's yes and. There's always a yes and, because the story continues, the story goes on. And it's to, through studying, you can find your way through this industry and to yourself if you trust what you know. Just trust what you know. And it could be acting today, it could be producing tomorrow, and then it could be back to acting. Trust yourself, trust the journey, trust the things that you have put in place for yourself, for your success in life. So
I really appreciate that. I really like the feedback that both of you gave, because, I think of myself and others that I know who are heading in one direction. I have a sibling who he wanted nothing more than to be a doctor. And it was because my mother had passed away from cancer. He wanted nothing more than being a doctor. And as he was going through school and everything, his route took him in a different direction. And what does he do now? He now does research and helps. And I won't pretend to know the technical stuff, but he does research helping with cancer, which is exactly what he wanted. So it's finding that niche. You kind of have this direction that you think you want to go. And I think acting is just the same. It's you put in the time, you put in the effort. So, well,
it's the discipline and the consistency, I think, that are so key.
And being honest with yourself, right? Where am I at? Like I've always said, I play the guitar, and I attempt to sing, but I've always said I'm a mediocre singer at best, so I'm not gonna,
You could become better. I think. I believe in you.
But it's knowing where your talents are, and knowing where to place that drive, discipline, right? And that's not to say give up on this, but it's seeing what comes natural for you, and then where to place that talent.
Absolutely.
Well, I kind of want to wrap up by just giving you guys an opportunity to give a plug for your productions. Why? First, we'll start with why come see Silent Sky?
Come see Silent Sky because you're learning about a piece of the discovery of the universe and the discovery of who is responsible for helping to measure the universe that you never knew. If it wasn't for Henrietta Leavitt and Annie Cannon and William Mina Fleming, then we wouldn't have Hubble. We wouldn't have the Hubble telescope. We wouldn't have some of the apps that you all use to look at the stars. And we also wouldn't know where we were in the universe.
I love that. Anything to add to that with Silent Sky? I mean, you gave such a great intro on it.
Oh, yeah, she did.
Thank you.
Rewind this back.
Yes. I think Silent Sky gives our audiences the unique perspective of, as AK stated, discovering where we are as individuals in this great big old world that we live in the galaxy. In this galaxy, one of many galaxies, kind of being able to find ourselves within that greatness.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So why now with the Mountaintop?
Sure.
there's a lot of, we climbed a lot of mountains back then.
Sure.
For civil rights.
Sure.
And there's a lot of political things still going on today.
Yeah.
But setting aside, which sounds almost ironic, setting aside the politics, why come see the Mountaintop?
Mm-hmm.
How is it going to resonate no matter what your political persuasion is? Why should people come out and see that?
Because you have to know where you've been in order to understand where you're going. You have to. You have to understand what the people who died, who gave their lives, fought for in order for us to be having this podcast, in order for the Utah Shakespeare Festival to do the amazing work that it does, in order for the men and women all around the U.S. to be able to live the lives that they live, I think it's important to look at Martin Luther King's legacy because we are part of his legacy. We are part of the work that continues. And I think it's important to not disassociate ourselves with the wonderful work that is consistently going on today. Even if you don't think you're smart, even if you don't think, if you don't have any political affiliation or any political care, you are still a part of something greater than yourself. Even if you do, the store that you go to and buy your milk from or your whatever your groceries are, it is a part of a greater scheme of things. And just as you have goals, you look back and you say, okay, well, this is how that plays in my life. This is how that person, and even with Camae, Alia's character, who is a fictional character, but based on real people. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is the opinion of some real people of that time. So, wow, how does that affect me? And believe it or not, it always does. It always affects you. It always affects you, whether or not you've lived as a hermit on on the top of a mountain somewhere. You've got something in common with them, and that humanity, that shared humanity, is key. So, in order to reach your goals, it's important that you kind of look back at what your ancestors and what those people before you have sacrificed.
Yeah, I love that. Anything you want to add about that with the mountain?
Yes, I believe that folks should come and experience the Mountaintop because it's a great opportunity to walk away feeling empowered. Mm. It's a great opportunity to see the Dr. Martin Luther King in each of us in an unexpected way. Mm. We all revere Dr. King for his accomplishments and all of the wonderful things that he's done for humanity. But it can be difficult sometimes to see how maybe we could also accomplish those great things in our lives. And I believe what this play does is identifies and shows how Dr. King is more like us than we could have ever imagined. Yeah. There is certainly an opportunity for us all to do the things that are on our heart, and it's okay to be who we are and in the skin that we are in, each of us. Yes. And I think that this play gives us permission to just be ourselves.
Wow.
And that's a wonderful feeling in the light of such a prominent figure.
I appreciate it. So,
well said.
If people want to go see the play, where do they go? How do they get tickets? Where?
You can go to bard.org.
Bard.org.
Okay.
And that's the Utah Shakespeare site. You can also obviously come to the box office at on the campus of the Utah Shakespeare Festival, which is right in downtown Cedar City. And we'll be happy to help you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we're at the Ains Theater.
Yes.
And we're there until October 5th.
5th, I believe.
Along with a lot of other great shows.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, there's something for everybody.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's I've been to a couple already this season. I plan to come see both of you and your show. So I'm really excited. And Alia, AK, I really appreciate your time. It's been so great getting to know you.
Absolutely.
Now when I come watch your shows, I can feel more important because
Please, when you do, make sure you put a word in. We'd love to see you there.
Get your take afterwards.
Okay, yeah, let's do it for sure. So, well, awesome. Well, thank you both, and
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.